Thank you for joining us on our English program here on Axiomine Media Network, our weekly program where we'll be covering the work of Tagaru diaspora all over the world, and also the ongoing genocide occurring in the Tigray region of Ethiopia, northernmost region of the country. To state that is a genocide is not an exaggeration, unfortunately. It's over, as I stated, 9 months, 256 days of pure suffering for civilians. Again, something I'd like to reiterate is that we're speaking about innocent civilians, elderly women and men, children, the youth, especially the young women who are being raped, the nuns being raped, the young men being killed in mass due to the fear of these so-called federal forces of Ethiopia led by the fascist unelected leader of Ethiopia, Abiy Ahmed, due to fear, killing innocent youth, Tagaru youth all over the country, all over the region, endlessly, tirelessly. He's worked alongside, if you have not watched our program previously, the dictator, Isaias Afwerki, warlord, warmonger, subhuman, someone who has no empathy for those who are suffering currently and has inflicted this man-made famine on the people of Tigray. It's absolute devastation, and we will continue to speak on all of the atrocities occurring and all of the updates that we can. Our weekly program is meant to serve Tagaru youth all over the world, but as Tagaru diaspora and Tagaru youth, Menese, our duty is to use our platforms, our voices, Dimtsana, for our people as well. And we cannot sit back silently as fascist hands, regional forces of Amhara, and now we are learning more and more regions as well have willfully committed a role to starving, to killing, to looting the people of Tigray. So we will start with our first article, an article from another credible source, and something I continue to try to reiterate, the use of credible sources. And most would ask, why do you have to continue to verify and back up all of your claims in your articles? Well, there is an ongoing propaganda, something we've discussed weekly, monthly over this 9-month period, where the pro-genocide, genocide apologists, pro-fascist, pro-Abiy Ahmed supporters are continuing to spew this hatred and continue to spew these lies that everything that comes from someone who is from Tigray descent, Tagaru, Tigray, Tigray is propaganda for one entity. When in fact we know the people of Tigray are speaking up for their families, for their friends, for their people in the country who are suffering endlessly. And our first article, as I stated, exemplifies that. It is an article from the organization called Reporters Without Borders, similar to Doctors Without Borders. It is an organization that ensures the safety of reporters and the rights of reporters all over the world. So this article is from this week, July 12th. This is a new article discussing and condemning the arrests of a total of 12 journalists in the space of 2 days in Ethiopian capital, Addis Ababa, and calls for their immediate and unconditional release. Most of these arrests, states, took place on June 30th, when a total of 10 employees of Aula Media Center news website, including reporters, cameramen, and editors, were arrested and placed in detention during this period without being tried. This includes Bacalo Alomero, a journalist who was previously arrested in November 2020 and was held for 2 weeks on charges of spreading fake news and defamation. That will sound familiar to those of you who have been listening to what's occurring over the past 9 months. Another was Abebe Bayu, a journalist with Ethioforum, a YouTube channel critical of the government, was also arrested on June 30th, while his Ethioforum colleague Yasso Shimelis was arrested the next day. Neither Aula Media Center or Ethioforum have been functioning since June 30th. That's well over 2 weeks now. Bayou's arrest, mentioned earlier, came just 9 days after he was kidnapped on the 21st of June by 4 unidentified men who threatened him with a gun and gave him a severe beating and took his money and mobile phones before dumping him on the outskirts of the capital. No explanations were given for the 12 arrests until July 2nd, when Jaylan Abdi, the head of the Federal Police Commission, a joke of an organization, communicated that the journalist had been arrested because of their affiliation with a terrorist group. Now, the Reporters Without Borders organization reported, "We condemn these mass arrests of journalists, which clearly aim to deter independent investigative reporting on the war in Tigray," the head of RSF's Africa desk stated. "These arrests conducted in a completely opaque manner are all the more shocking because just a few months ago, the Ethiopian parliament voted a new media law decriminalizing most press offenses. We call for the immediate and unconditional release of these journalists." Unfortunately, this is the sad reality of Tigray, of Ethiopia, Addis Ababa, the capital included. There is a propaganda campaign to present this image of Abiy Ahmed, the fascist, illegitimate leader of Ethiopia, that the entire country is moving towards democracy. Democracy does not operate in this fashion. Not with unexplained arrests, muggings and beatings of those who report news, unprovable, unverified accusations of supporting terrorist organizations. Where is the burden of proof on the government of Ethiopia, on the illegitimate government in Addis Ababa? There is no burden of proof because this is a fascist function. We do as we please, we say as we please, we accuse as we please. The reality on the ground is what we say it is. Anyone who reports otherwise is fake news, spreading lies for the junta, for the terrorist organization. Over these 9 months, we've heard a lot of this junta, of this terrorist organization that they're hunting. But the innocent civilians of Tigray have paid the price over this 9 months. They've been, as I stated, devastated. This has been an operation to devastate the region into submission. There is no law and order operation because all law and order has been removed from the region. All things that we've covered over these past 8-9 months now, 256 days ongoing. The people are suffering and they want you to believe the truth comes from those who are inflicting the punishment. It's a shame. This is the current state of Ethiopia for reporters. Some of them national, domestic reporters for Ethiopia, from Ethiopia at least, from Tigray. A lot of them not. What do you think the people of Tigray are suffering? In Ethiopia, in Addis Ababa, imagine being a Tigray, Tagaru in Addis Ababa are suffering. They're being discriminated, and it's provable through so many stories that have been covered. And we're going to show exactly that here with the Associated Press, another organization who has more than enough credibility. But those who choose to close their eyes in the midst of a genocide, in the midst of a sham election, in the midst of a fascist leader working with those around him being fascist, in fact, just like him, what more can we tell them? We will continue to shed the light, though. Please take a look at this article here. This is Associated Press, as I stated, and this is another recent article, July 13th, 2021, Purely Ethnic Profiling. It states the title, New Wave of Tigrayans Detained. Sad state of Addis Ababa, unfortunately. It continues. Witnesses say thousands of Tigrayans are being detained and their businesses closed in cities across Ethiopia in a new wave of ethnic targeting by authorities over the 8-month conflict in the Tigray region. Genocide and a war. Let's not undermine and state it that is simply a conflict. That is one of the biggest issues with what's going on currently. A lot of mismanagement of calling it what it is. This is genocide, subjugation of the people of Tigray. Continues, the detentions followed the dramatic turn in the war last month when resurgent Tigray forces, TDF, marched into the regional capital, Mekelle, as Ethiopian soldiers retreated and Ethiopia's government announced a unilateral ceasefire, a sham. An earlier wave of detentions followed the start of the war in November after months of tensions between the government and Tigray's leaders. Meron Addis, a 32-year-old attorney who raised money for food and other aid to people in Tigray and has been outspoken on the toll on civilians, not TDF, TPLF, junta, terrorists, civilians, told the Associated Press that 2 plainclothes officers came to her home in the capital, Addis Ababa, on June 28th and accused her of storing weapons. Then dozens of uniformed officers searched the place without presenting a warrant, she said. After finding no weapons, they took her to a police station where she was charged with expressing support for the Tigray forces and spreading hate on social media. She met several other Tigrayans while in custody and was released a week later. Police told her she was helping the junta, a common term used by authorities for the Tigray fighters. You are causing friction between the government and the people of Tigray by posting pictures on Facebook of children and victims of the war. Hunger and rape, she said, they told her. After her release, 2 of her relatives were detained. 2 of her relatives. Another detainee was released last week and told the AP that several dozen other Tigrayans were held in a center in the outskirts of the capital. At first, we were told that we were suspected of having links with the Tigray fighters. Once in jail, they began accusing us of sending money to support terrorists and vowed we won't be released unless Ethiopian prisoners of war under the control of Tigray forces are released. None of us were brought to court. Like many others, he spoke on the condition of anonymity for fear of reprisals. Because they are living in a state of anarchy, a state where fascist government entities continue to bully the people with their strong arm tactics. It's a fact. With Ethiopia's government having declared Tigray's ruling party a terrorist group, ordinary Tigrayans across the country are under even more pressure, even as they seek to speak out about alleged war atrocities and send aid to the region as hundreds of thousands of people face the world's worst famine crisis in a decade at the hands of fascist Abiy Ahmed. And the unelected Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, in a speech after Ethiopian forces retreat, alleged that ordinary Tigrayans have supported the Tigray fighters. Imagine Tagaru supporting the entity that's not raping, pillaging, and killing their people. Why would they do something like that? Because they're being absolutely devastated by Eritrean foreign forces, Amhara militias, and Ethiopian federal forces. all of which we've shown documentation of their crimes against humanity, their war crimes committed upon innocent civilians because they become suspicious of anyone who is of Tagaru descent. Continues, the governmental Ethiopian Human Rights Commission, however, said it is monitoring detentions of Tigrayans and media workers suspected of links to the situation in Tigray. Such measures aggravate the public's concerns on the risk of ethnic profiling. I would say that is the least. A Tigrayan activist told the AP detentions appear to be occurring in major cities across Ethiopia. People who have never set foot in the Tigray region and those who have no knowledge of politics are becoming victims, he said, adding that some are fleeing the capital out of fear of being detained. One lawyer, Tesfa Alam Berhe, said he has compiled a list of 103 Tigrayans detained in the capital in the past 2 weeks. Many were taken at shops, cafes, and bus stations because their IDs showed their ethnicity or because they were speaking Tigrinya, he said. Others were taken from their homes. They are disappeared, he said, estimating that tens of thousands have been detained. They are not given access to their families, lawyers, and there's no allegation of crime. It is purely ethnic profiling. To continue as if this is not enough evidence, a Tigrayan civil servant in the capital told the AP he watched as a colleague was detained by 2 plainclothes officers at the health center where he worked. When the colleague's manager asked why, the officer cited unspecified security reasons. The civil servant said, I am very nervous because we hear about lots of people being arrested. I worry the police and security services are monitoring us, so I barely talk on the phone. For every Tigrayan, this is very, very pertinent what he says here. For every Tigrayan in Addis Ababa, it's hard for us at this time because of the political situation. Hard for them is the understatement. This is very, very troubling to say the least. As I stated, Addis Ababa is currently suffering, at least at the hands, at least for those, pardon me, who are Tagaru in Addis Ababa. Those are the ones truly suffering right now. Addis Ababa, Ethiopia as a whole, is suffering currently due to Abiy Ahmed's fascist regime and their illogical genocidal tactics on the people of Tigray, and they've contributed to various other upcoming issues throughout the country. It's not just in Tigray. In Addis Ababa, the capital of Ethiopia, people are being arrested, businesses closed, targeted for what other reason besides having one thing on their identification card, stating they are of Tigray descent, Tagaru, Tigrayan. They've spoken the language, Tigrinya. What does this sound like to anyone who has common sense and an objective eye for information? They are targeting civilians out of pure suspicion with no evidence and no proof. No warrants needed. This is a democratic state. There, you are allowed to pursue democracy as an Ethiopian, as Tagaru, as anyone else in the world. How can one state this is a crusade for democracy as you rape, pillage, and kill your own citizens, allow foreign entities to come into your country, all the while outside of the region, your own citizens who are of that descent are being treated as if they are third, fourth, fifth class citizens. This is the state of Ethiopia. All documented, all proven with these legitimate news sources. Fake news these days, they state, comes from anywhere outside of Abiy Ahmed and his puppets, mouth. If they do not show us the information, it cannot be true. But that's the sad state of where we are. Currently, as you'll see on the screen, the conflict is not winding down despite the fake unilateral ceasefire announced by the Ethiopian government. July 14th, Ethiopia conflict heats up, it states, as Amhara region vows to attack Tigray forces. This is sadly where we are heading, the direction we are going. There is no unilateral ceasefire. Ethiopia's war in the north region of Tigray states looked set to intensify on Wednesday as the prime minister signaled the end of a government ceasefire, and the neighboring Amhara region said it would go on the offensive against Tigrayan forces. To give you a little bit of a background, something we've covered previously, but to give you some insight here, we've talked about how Abiy Ahmed's illegitimate government has claimed on numerous occasions we are entering a unilateral ceasefire for the people of Tigray because they are starving, even though they denied such previous to that. Now he admitted they're starving, and the unilateral ceasefire is to aid them because we need to allow humanitarian aid into the area. What's happened in the time since? Many humanitarian aid workers attacked and killed during the retreat of Ethiopian federal forces, Amhara militias, and Eritrean forces, although none of which have completely left the Tigray region. What else have we seen? The UNICEF office. They have no weapons as they are an organization built to serve children. Satellite equipment destroyed on the alleged retreat of a unilateral ceasefire. Bridges leading out of the region into Shire from Amhara region to Kaza Bridge. Various other bridges that provide needed access into the region. And on top of that, the roads, which have been blocked for years now, were destroyed. Bridges destroyed, roads blocked, pardon me. But this unilateral ceasefire is to help the people of Tigray because they need to plant their crops. If we return to the article, they're re-engaging this war after a few weeks. Did the people of Tigray all of a sudden find aid while you were blocking the roads and bombing bridges? Did their plants that they cropped, the crops that they planted 2 weeks ago all of a sudden grow and they were able to eat already? This is a joke. The series of lies that this fascist government continues to spew is absurd. Anyway, continues. The TPLF, it states, but they should state the TDF. Back to the key aspect of naming, or they call rebel forces or TPLF or terrorists. TDF, the people defending their land and their people, had recaptured most of its home region in the past 3 weeks after an abrupt reversal in an 8-month war, has vowed to retake Western Tigray, their land, and expands a fertile territory controlled by Amhara forces who seized it during the conflict. Illegitimate Prime Minister, fascist Abiy Ahmed abruptly pulled central government troops out of most of Tigray last month, citing a unilateral ceasefire. That the TPLF mocked as a joke designed to justify his forces' retreat. Wednesday's statement marked a shift in rhetoric as Abiy said the ceasefire had failed to deliver. Unbelievable. A spokesman for the Amhara regional government, this is extremely important, pay attention, has said the authorities there were rallying their own forces for a counterattack against Tigrayans. The regional government has now transitioned from defensive to offensive, he states. Gazach Muline was quoted as saying by the region's state-run Amhara Media Corporation, Tigray militia and special forces have been systematically trying to defend, but now our patience has run out, and as of today, we have opened offensive attack. Western Tigray continues has long been home to large populations of both Tigrayans and Amhara, and renewed fighting between two of Ethiopia's biggest ethnic groups over the territory could drive another wave of refugees from a conflict that has already forced 2 million from their homes. When Abiy sent troops to fight TPLF last year, but he went to fight the people of Tigray, Amhara militia, it continues, fought on the central government side, using the opportunity, here we go, to take control of a swath of region of territory administered by Tigrayans for decades. They seized the opportunity during a midst of a fake law and order operation. Since Abiy's abrupt withdrawal on June 28th, TDF has pushed steadily outwards, recapturing most of Tigray. Its forces retook Alamata, the main town in the south, on Monday, and pushed across the deep ravine of the Takaza River to take Maistamre from Amhara control on Tuesday. But a tougher fight could loom for Western Tigray, which the Amhara consider a reclaimed part of their historical homeland and vowed to keep under their control. It continues, Abiy Ahmed's fascist government states the ceasefire could not bear the desired fruits. The TPLF poses a great danger to the sovereignty of the country. The federal government, through mobilizing the people of Ethiopia, is determined to curb this threat. He blamed TPLF for choosing to fight rather than allow in aid or observe the ceasefire, and accused them of recruiting and deploying child soldiers, which is a lie. TPLF spokesman Getachew Reda dismissed the claim, "We don't have child soldiers because mature soldiers are never in short supply," he told Reuters via satellite phone. He also repeated that they welcome aid and would not observe a ceasefire while parts of Tigray remain under control of the central government or its allies. This is a pertinent part of what he's discussing here. They remain in the region. What ceasefire allows you to keep control of our region, he states, essentially. And it touches on a devastating part of this as well. Caught in the middle of the fighting are 23,000 Eritrean refugees sheltering in camps near the town of Maistabri. Many have already fled the Tigrayan war once when two other refugee camps were destroyed by Eritrean forces, by the way, and Amhara militia, and told Reuters they had seen refugees kidnapped and killed during previous fighting. And he touches on how Tigray militia were searching refugees and confiscating cell phones, and they're still shooting all around the camp, he's stating. The spokesman for TPLF or TDF, our forces stated, "Our forces are not Eritrean, are not after Eritrean refugees. We will make sure refugees are protected, and we are more than ready to investigate any claims." Ethiopia's head of the refugee agency, Tesfahan Gobuzai, said they wanted to relocate the refugees away from fighting as fast as possible. "We will bring refugees into the high schools as we try to build shelters," he said. So there's a few troubling parts to this article. The first portion is the fact that the fascist government of Abiy Ahmed is stating they desire a ceasefire to allow aid, but I stated they're blocking roads and bombing bridges. They have not completely evacuated the region. Eritrea's foreign forces are still in Tigray. We're still in Tigray at the time. Although the fighting has spread towards the borders of Tigray, that is only due to the soldiers of TDF continuing to push on. We do not speak for military campaigns and military soldiers' objectives. This is a civilian genocide occurring. The people of Tigray are suffering. So how can you state you are trying to provide them aid when it takes a report as of a few days ago states it's taken 4 days to get one group of trucks into Makala? 4 days. There's no true attempt to help the people. This is another series of lies and deflections in order to continue to subjugate the people of Tigray, to starve the people of Tigray in the hopes that they can accomplish some type of military success in the meantime. But unfortunately, for the fascist and pro-genocide government, it's not succeeding. We've stated several times, we need unfettered access for the civilians of Tigray to aid, to medical attention, and all resources that all civilians of Ethiopia, of Tigray, all citizens, non-military personnel, non-military political affiliated persons are entitled to in all countries. But the fascist government of Abiy Ahmed refuses to do so, constantly denying people are starving, constantly denying that they are blocking roads, constantly lying about the true motives behind what they are doing. Unfortunately, we have to continue to speak because the Ethiopian fascist unelected government behind Abiy Ahmed and Isaias Afwerki fascist hands will continue to starve the people intentionally if unfettered, if we do not continue to speak and put pressure. Governments around the world, entities around the world have to speak up, have to put pressure on these fascists. I want to show a little excerpt before we wrap up today's episode of what a statement on what the current state of Tigray is in Ethiopia from someone who is more than qualified to speak, Joseph Borrell.
Situation in Tigray region has never been as bad. In spite of the ceasefire announced by the government of Ethiopia, what we are seeing in Tigray, what we are afraid Tigray is going to suffer, is a serious humanitarian crisis with almost 1,850,000 at risk of famine and ongoing use of violence against civilians and rape as a weapon of war. The ceasefire is a positive step, but what's happening today is that the Tigray region is being cut off the rest of the world by destroying critical infrastructure of transportation, and this, as I said, could bring the region to the risk of a mass famine. We at the European Union, the Commission, will organize an air bridge to try to bring support to the region, but you can imagine that we cannot solve the problem of a famine affecting to 850,000 people. It's something that is out of our capability. It will require the mobilization of almost 1 million people, 850,000 million people, the mobilization of the United Nations agencies, and to ensure humanitarian access. We are ready to support the population, but we call to the member states to provide donations as a clear sign of EU solidarity. To consolidate the ceasefire, to withdrawal of foreign forces from the Ethiopian territory, to stop human rights violations, and to launch a reconciliation and national dialogue in order to preserve the integrity and political unity of Ethiopia, which remains a clear strategic objective. Finally, we should be ready to use restrictive measures where we believe they are justified and necessary in advancing these goals.
That was Joseph Borrell. As I stated, he is the High Representative on the European Commission, and their council has spoken in grave terms in terms of what's occurring in Tigray, things we have covered already over these 256 days, as I stated. We will continue to shed light on what's occurring at the hands of these fascists, this man-made famine, this uninvestigated genocide that has occurred on the people of Tigray, from Aksum to Maikadra to all regions of Tigray have suffered during this period, whether it be through massacres, whether it be through intentional starvation, whether it be through purposeful killing of innocent civilians, non-military related personnel. As of late, in Addis Ababa, people are suffering, as we covered today. Innocent civilians being rounded up. Does this sound like a democratic state? Pro-genocide, pro-fascist supporters cannot stand behind these lies any longer. We have to continue to put pressure. There's hate speech out there. Ignore. Do not participate. The people of Tigray need to have their voices heard, and we need to continue to be the voices for them. For anyone out there, I've stated on many occasions, if you are an empathetic, sympathetic person, for those who are being intentionally starved, raped, pillaged, looted, killed, your hospitals being burned or ransacked constantly over a 9-month period, crops intentionally burned, your brothers, and fathers and sisters and mothers being killed, your sisters, your mothers, your cousins, your neighbors being raped in gruesome fashion, documented, all backed up with evidence, witness testimonies, as I stated previously. If you can identify and speak up for these people, is only right. I hope you continue to share this message. Please post this, repost, share this message for Tegaru. I will continue to state this message every week. We'll bring the information and then we'll make a plea for people to pay attention and spread the word. For Tegaru youth, diaspora, whether born in another country or born in Ethiopia or born in Tigray or born in Sudan, wherever, show them this information if they are not aware. Bring them up to date. For those who are not Tegaru but can identify with what's going on, as I stated, share this information with them. Ask them, does this look like a democratic state? Fascist, unelected Abiy Ahmed doing this to his own citizens? On November 4th, they were his citizens. Today, TDF is defending them. But again, we're here to talk about civilian suffering. So please share this message. Please continue to speak for the people of Tigray. Continue to speak for our mothers, for our fathers in Tigray. They need our voices, and diaspora of Tigray has continued over these 256 and ongoing days, speaking for them, protesting for them. Let's not give up. Our fight has only begun, and I thank you for watching us. I am your host, Arulawune, and I want to thank every single person who shares this message and posts this video, because our goal here is not to share and become famous or to get views for, I'm sure Aksumine Media Network could benefit from more people and more attention, but the goal here is to help speak for the innocent civilians of Tigray, especially those who are suffering in the region currently, but also for those who are currently being devastated, as we showed in our articles today in Addis Ababa, the capital of Ethiopia, an alleged democratic state, people are being rounded up as if they are political entities, but they have normal lives to live. They deserve individual freedoms and liberties. I thank you once again, and until next week, I hope you continue to speak for the people of Tigray.
نحنا حزب تግራይ كان ورق تفترنا إنا لو مين السعر صراحين السعر لو مين نمبركخ صراحين نمبركخ أهدا وسرعتس أي جزء أنا نحر حجي أهدا وسرعت كنا طفء أي حتى نسلم تنسوينا إن بعد زي ما قمنا حلو لو 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 نالو نوعت عيننا أنا معبد كم يقرنا هذا وسرعت حجي نمبركخ لو مين نمبركخ صراحين نمبركخ